Hey guys, Dan here with our buddy Merlin. Say hello.
Hello.
Nice to have you on this Zoom cast for Frasier Friday. We just figured out the technology for this and we're all set to go. It's been about a month because of the shutdown since we've had a new Frasier episode up. So we now present to you Frasier Season 9. Um, I think everything's a mirror image, so this probably reads backwards.
Well, looking at it on my end, I can see it the correct way, so hopefully they can too.
Okay, well there you go then. Either way, they all look lovely. Daphne's got her short haircut here, uh, and lost all the weight. There's no more, fat Daphne jokes.
Look, which is great. Automatic, like I'm going to give it praise for that. But I have to say, why is it that our reviews of each box, like for each season, culminates with hair?
With the
Like
haircut.
we judge it the
Well,
quality. Is there a correlation of some kind?
you love the mullet
I
years.
love the mullet years. First two
More
years are great.
here, they're all just like fancy and coiffed, and just all of it. So yeah, I don't know. Speaking of hair, there's one episode we haven't gotten to yet that must be in season 10. It's where they have the weight loss contest, and to win, Roz cuts her ponytail off.
Oh,
That must be in season 10 because I
I,
remember that episode vividly, but it hasn't come up yet.
I don't remember that one at all, actually.
Yeah, well, it's very memorable over here, I guess.
Huh.
Um, so this is the third to last season, season 9. Season 8, we remember, was a bit of a decline in quality, largely, I would say, due to the fat jokes.
A big
Uh,
part of it, yeah.
but there were some other things involved too. So here we start fresh. We have a whole nother season, and so we're going to tackle the first half of the season. Actually, we're going to tackle a little more than the first half because episode 12 ends on a cliffhanger, which is part one of Daphne's mom coming to town. So we'll do both of those parts in this video. But
All right.
start with Don Juan in Hell. This is actually a two-parter as well. This is the hour-long season premiere, and this picks up exactly where the last season ends off. The whole Crane family plus Frasier's girlfriend Claire is down in what is it, San Juan or something.
Yeah.
Uh, forget where they are, but
Rio
they're
or
off
something.
some beautiful island resort, and no, it's Belize. That's right. They went to
Belize.
Belize it or not. Um, so Frasier at the end of the last one was like kind of bummed out. Everyone was having a great time but him. Even Claire was like, dude, what's going on here? So he ends up calling Lilith at the end of last season. So here we have the two-parter. They are back, but he is still struggling with his feelings, and you've got Lana there as well as sort of she's in the mix and she's Claire's best friend. But this is the episode where we see classic cabin, goes to the cabin as always.
Like a
um,
cabin.
and we've got Diane, we've got Lilith, we've got Nanette, and then of course the return of Rita Wilson as the mother. And by the way, Joe, I didn't actually grade any of these episodes like I have with the other seasons.
Really?
Just knew well because I knew we'd be talking over the Zoom, which is on my phone.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I wouldn't really have access to my grades and the synopses. So we're just going to talk about them,
Oh, okay.
giving the grades. Um, but I mean, I can give them grades, but I didn't like write them down.
Sure.
It is
Whatever.
interesting to note about this episode that this is the start of the season right after 9/11. This aired
Uh,
about 2 weeks, almost to the day. Actually, it was 2 weeks to the day after 9/11, September 25th. And this episode was dedicated to David and Lynn Angel. David was one of the producers and maybe one of the co-creators of the show as well. And they both died in the September 11th attack. So,
wow.
sort of, in context, it's sort of weird to, business as usual. You remember this. You were a little young, younger than me at the time, but you're still a little younger than me. Let's be real. But yeah, I mean, I remember this being a big deal that like comedy shows were coming back on television. Um, but I thought this was a good one, exploring the whole Frasier women relationship that he's struggled with since the Cheers days. Really, as long as we've known the character. I really like Claire, though. I hate that he sort of botches that whole thing up.
Yeah, but well, I don't know. Do you sometimes, and maybe this is kind of what we're going to get into when we talk about this season. And I know I mentioned it before with, I guess, with sitcoms, you have that consistent, revolving door of dating for, different hijinks and scenarios, and that's fine. But sometimes I do think that having longer relationships for Frasier might offer different opportunities for writing. I guess they kind of had that with Niles and Daphne, but I think with Frasier, there's still good opportunities. You're right. I think Claire would have been a good potential match for him in a lot of ways. And you're right. It's kind of, I wonder if they did that because they would fear potentially writing him into a corner, maybe losing ratings.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he sort. I mean, Niles has sort of been with women for years at a time because, of course, Maris was the first like 4 seasons or so,
Hmm.
and then we had Mel for about a season, and then the whole Daphne thing till the end of the series. But even Martin, I feel like has had longer lasting
Then
relationships
Frasier.
than Frasier. I think the
Yeah.
one we've seen of Frasier is maybe the station manager for like 8 episodes or whatever it was, 6 episodes.
Huh.
But even then, we talked about how it wasn't long enough.
Huh.
You
Yeah,
know,
and I don't know, and I don't know if that kind of bothers me. I don't want to get too off on a tangent, but I guess, all right, when you think about Frasier, do you think the crux of the show is Frasier dating? That
no,
is see, okay, I'm
no,
glad you said that because in that one interview you saw with Kelsey Grammer, he said, Frasier's going to be looking for love again. I'm just thinking that's not the main thing I tune into Frasier for. I see
right,
the studio, the radio station, work, and the family. The romance is good too, but I find it gets a little repetitive. He makes a lot of the same mistakes, and like you said last season, he starts doing things that are kind of questionable for the character sometimes.
right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think of Frasier as um, our friend Brittany calls these split comms, and I don't coin that or
I
not,
like it.
but I love it. I think it's great. And she said, Dick Van Dyke is the original split comms. It's not a family show. It's not a work show. It's both.
Mm.
Cheers was pretty much a work show. We saw a little bit of these people's lives outside the workplace, but here, it's a fairly even split depending on the season, between the radio station and the family life.
Hmm.
Those are the two things I most associate with Frasier, not his dating. So yeah, I agree completely. Um, which I don't know, maybe is part of the reason the whole Niles Daphne will they or won't they going on for so long is a bit of an irritant as well. Uh,
Yeah, went a
but
little long.
it's part of the show, and the woman playing Claire, Patricia Clarkson, famous actress from other TV shows and stuff. Maybe she was only contracted, for 5 episodes or whatever, and so the
Mm.
writers wrote her out, because that was how it was set up.
That's true.
Uh, who knows? But I don't know. But I thought this was a good season opener. I would give this probably like a B plus kind of thing.
Okay.
Uh, so up next, we've got The First Temptation of Daphne. This one is very interesting because we see a real breach of trust and a breach of a little bit of ethics too, with Niles, which sort of becomes a recurring theme in this season. This is where Daphne learns that one of his patients has feelings for him.
Oh yeah.
Her and Oz conspire to, meet her and find out more about her and what she looks like and everything. And Niles finds out and is real angry about it.
Hmm.
But then, is smoothed over very easily by the end. I mean, he's just like, "How dare you? I can't believe it." Da, 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 da. And then within the next breath, she's like, "Well, I did it because I love you so much, and I, got scared." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And it's just like
Yeah.
my ethics,
Status quo. Just go back to a next episode.
right.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I remember I did enjoy that one because I thought it was exploring her insecurities and kind of going into a different direction for their relationship and seeing that Niles could see that Daphne could do wrong, and you don't really see him angry at her ever. So that was a good moment, but you're right. It is like resolved almost immediately.
Yeah, almost immediately. And the B story to this episode is one of my least favorites in all of Frasier.
Oh
It's
no.
the where Martin comes back from a fishing trip and there's a cricket in the house. So him and Frasier, just I mean, it's fine, but again, like I've said in some of these other seasons recently that we've talked about, it's like so sitcom-y. It's so like physical I Love Lucy type comedy. It's so broad, you
Very
know.
broad. Hmm.
It's okay, but I like the more cerebral aspects of Frasier.
Sure.
Uh, so this was not one of my favorite episodes. I'd give this probably like a C plus, B minus,
Oh wow.
something like that. So up next, the return of Martin Crane. This is when he gets his job at the security guard,
Hmm.
which we see through the remainder of the season.
Hmm.
Uh, which I think is cool. I think it adds an interesting new twist to the life of Martin Crane. I think that's something to look forward to every day. But in this particular first episode with the job, there's a big kerfuffle about who's going to take care of Eddie because there's Billy Joel concert tickets on the line. There's throat singing tickets on the line, and nobody wants to do it. I think everybody again is being kind of a jerk in this
A
episode,
little bit, yeah.
except for Martin. I'm glad he kind of tells everybody off basically and says, "Look,
As he
you know,
usually does.
as he right, he usually sets everything straight." Well, and that and listen, that's what's so funny about just the premise of Frasier is that he's the psychiatrist with no clue of how to live his own life.
Uh-huh.
Martin's really the voice of reason of this family.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the conscience. But yeah, I love that they gave him a job, and I think we will talk about some interesting twists with that throughout season 9, and I think he keeps it throughout the rest of the series if I'm not mistaken. But
Nice.
uh, yeah, I can't really remember, but yeah. Other than everybody being kind of a jerk, I mean, it was a funny episode, um, but I just wanted to throttle everybody. How did you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I actually liked it. I thought that the throat singing comparison to Billy Joel concert was pretty funny. Uh,
Yeah, that part was good.
like when they're excited, that whole element was funny. I mean, I think it was good to introduce that new element of him getting the security job. I know there's some good episodes relating to that later on this season, but yeah, once again, I feel like okay, people not wanting to help take care of Eddie, but thinking about their dad. I feel like maybe earlier in the show this would have been a more appropriate thing, but with the growth these characters have had, I feel like they shouldn't care that much.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked at really just how selfish everyone was being
Yeah.
uh, about the whole thing. So this again isn't one of my favorites. It's probably more range.
Hmm.
Um, Love Stinks is next. This is where Frasier finds some graffiti about him in the toilet at work, calling him a snob. So he tries to become an everyman,
That's a good
and
one.
as usual, misses the mark, and doesn't really get it. But we also introduce Roger in this episode, which is sort of an ongoing theme with Roz. Although I think this is the only episode we actually see him in. Maybe there's one other one, but I feel like we hear about him a lot. And she talks about him, and we see them by the end of the season broken up. But I think this might be the only one he's actually in. Do you think that's right?
I think you might be right about that, which is weird considering she's in a relationship with him for the whole season, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Yes, and he's a very likable character. Here's another one. Like I wish we spent more time with this character. He's a garbage man, and she is embarrassed about that. So when she goes to Frasier's party, she doesn't want to introduce him, and it's very awkward. And here again, I think she's acting like kind of a jerk. I mean, she dated Bulldog when he was a pizza delivery man.
Yeah,
So
like Roz doesn't really care that much, does she?
right. I thought that was weird and out of character, especially in an episode where Frasier is trying to prove he's an everyman. Why is Roz so uptight about her man?
Well, I mean, all right. Well, to be fair, we see later on that Roz it has a lot of insecurities anyway, and I guess it's something that's kind of been shown a little bit throughout the show anyway. That maybe she hasn't steadily gone with the man that she has actually felt like she could have a good relationship with. So maybe being in that new territory, she's thinking about his career and how people will judge her. That's something that she does care about. Because I did think that she sold it well. The actress sold it well, and it seemed believable thing that could happen. But I do agree. Once again, I think the biggest thing is we never see him again, and he's one of the great guest stars from Ghost. That guy, your buddy,
That's right. The
Ghost
president
Man
from Scandal.
from Scandal. What's that guy's name? Yeah, yeah.
Tony
I like that
Goldwyn.
guy.
I forgot that's who Roger was because he was only in the one darn episode.
But that's a pretty big
Yeah,
guest star.
great guest star. And God, we're going to get to some of our favorite guest stars this season coming
Yep.
up. But yes, I forgot it was President from Scandal himself, Tony Goldwyn. So yeah, again, this was not one of my favorites. It's like that sort of B range.
Yeah, B range probably makes sense again.
But now, okay, here we get to a great one. This is one of the ones, maybe it's in my, top 15 or 20 Frasier episodes. Room Full of Heroes. This is the Halloween party where
Yes.
Frasier evokes this game he's created called Hero Worship. And so he wants everybody to dress as their hero. So he comes in as Sigmund Freud. Marty dresses as Joe DiMaggio. Roz comes as Wonder Woman. I love Daphne doing Elton John. That's classic. And then Niles dresses as Martin Crane, which of course sparks the immediate rivalry between Frasier
again. Up to Dad.
right. And then it ends up with I love the twist that this episode takes with the storyline, where Niles ends up being really condescending in his portrayal of Martin. And so things turn around and Frasier becomes, the favorite by the end. Again, there's sort of a running theme this season in almost every episode. At least somebody's being a jerk. We've dealt with this now every episode this season. Niles is drunk off of beer, which at least it's understandable because beer's not his drink, but he's pretending to be Marty, so okay, makes sense. But I really like the turns that this episode took, and I love the little side joke about how the kids in the complex call Frasier Old Man Crane, and they have the rhyme about how he's going to eat their brains.
That was pretty good.
I thought that was really funny too. So for me, so far, this is my favorite one of the season.
This was one I really liked. I appreciated the costume theme. I thought that, like you said, there was some good tension, drama with between Frasier and Niles, but also Niles trying to kind of say that he admired his dad with this imitation, goes over the top and actually becomes insulting and hurtful, and then Frasier saves the day at the end. That was clever. The conflict between the brothers is like my favorite thing. Also, Elton John for Daphne was good, but of course, Roz dressing as Wonder Woman was pretty great. And her legitimate kind of acceptance of that and saying, oh, no, she really is my hero. And I look up to her and I'm like, that's pretty cool. So, no, I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, I love that they did that, that she at first was embarrassed and just sort of pretended she didn't understand the theme of the game and was like, oh, I thought you meant superhero. But then, when it comes down to it, she really does have a good explanation for
and I liked that. I thought
why
that was
she's the hero. Yeah, I like that.
For like superheroes and stuff. I thought that was good.
So that one probably gets an A for me. I love that episode.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so up next is Blasi Boy. This is where Martin and Frasier are really just at each other's throats, thinking about how this is the 8th anniversary of them moving in. And so all this stuff happens. Martin's trying to grease his chair, and he ends up spilling on the carpet, and then
escalation.
The escalation, and Frasier saying nothing, accident, and then the chair ends up on the balcony while the carpet's cleaned, gets set on fire from the telescope, the sun hitting it, and then they end up throwing the chair off the balcony. I mean, this is one of those episodes. Is this your favorite?
Well, I don't know if I'd say my favorite, but this is one that I remembered from years ago. This is one of the Frasier classics. Whenever it comes to that chair, just like the chair just gets destroyed, and it's the subconsciously you wanted to do this. Like, no, it was actually an accident. So it was just hilarious.
Yeah, well, especially because Frasier has to basically eat his own words because when his dad does it to the carpet with the oil, he's like, "Well, there are no accidents,"
I
and
thought
then
you said there are no
when he does it
accidents.
there. Yeah, I mean this is one of those ones that I always think comes up way earlier than season 9. Like I always feel like this is a season 4, season 5 because it is such a classic.
You know what? I was thinking the same thing. I feel like, you watch all these and they kind of run together a little bit, which is why it's good you remind me when we do these recaps. But I remember when I think about this one, I like this one a lot, but it seems like it should be a lot earlier because in the first couple seasons, there was so much focus on the chair. Then we
Right,
kind of don't. And it seems like
right.
something Frasier got over. He's just accepted. So him accidentally destroying the chair should have been something that I feel like should have happened like 5 seasons ago.
And it's funny. I guess that's sort of a running theme of like long lasting sitcoms with classic episodes sort of peppered in. Because I went through Everybody Loves Raymond last year,
Hmm.
and I was up to like the second to last season. And I was like, there's still at least like 8 or 10 classic episodes that I swear happened way before this. And somehow they don't. And same with the hero worship one. I always feel like that's earlier in the run too. But yeah, this is another great one. I give this one an A for sure.
It's a good one. Very
Um,
good.
so up next we have the 200th episode, is what it's called, and that's also the 200th episode of the Frasier sitcom. But it talks about basically the 2000th episode of the Frasier Crane show, and we have Bill Gates guest starring here as himself,
Good one.
uh, and Frasier is so excited to put his tape in the archive, comes home to learn that one of his tapes has been set askew and replaced with the best of Hall and Oates, which is my favorite, I think, part of the whole episode. Just the way he loathsomely says Hall and Oates. Uh,
Hall and Oates.
this kills me because that only could be one person because it's not Martin and it's certainly not going to be Niles. He knows
uh,
right away that it's Daphne, and it sends him on this sort of journey of like, okay, why do I even need to have every one of these tapes?
mhm.
I'm obsessed with it. But he goes on the radio and says, "Look, if anybody has a tape of this show." Oh, we
Yeah.
see Bulldog return in this episode
Oh
because
yeah.
we learn that he's down in the
The
basement in the
records.
archives. Yeah, but they don't have it. But this is the guest on this that they find is one of the greats, right?
I think so.
I'm trying to. I'm looking here who it is. Uh, it's none of these people I'm looking at. I forget what the guy's name. Uh, what the character's name is even to find, but I feel like it's another one of these like great guest stars of the season.
Let me check.
Um,
Frasier.
but they
2000.
go and find this shut in. Oh, it's Arkin. It's Alan Arkin's son,
Oh, Alan Arkin's son.
Adam Arkin
Okay.
was on. I guess at the time he was on one of the hospital shows, but
One
um,
of the many.
one of the many. But yes, he plays this like super like crazy obsessed fan, and so Frasier sort of realizes he's being a little bit
You can
uh,
keep it. You need it
unique.
more than I.
Yeah. So I really like this episode. We're getting now to the part of the season that I really like. This season sort of has peaks and valleys, as I think we'll see when Daphne's family starts to show up.
Oh,
But
yeah.
right now we're at a peak where all
Yeah.
these episodes I think are pretty great. This is probably like an A minus type episode.
Yeah, no, this one was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed the bit where, of course, Frasier has his whole setup for his questions for Bill Gates, but people just calling in don't care about that. They just have like technical questions for Windows XP, and I'm like, that's pretty great. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it was nice that he could kind of poke fun at the confusion of some of his products.
That was good. I kind of appreciate that, when someone can do that. So Bill
Yeah.
Gates was good.
But all right, so up next is Sharon Kirby. Now we've got the return of Kirby. He's in, I think, a few different episodes this season. But this is Lana's son that last season Frasier was tutoring him. He took Roz to the prom.
You know,
Um,
Dan, I gotta
tell me.
say. I remember when he was introduced, I wasn't sure how much I was going to like him, but this character's really grown on me. I really like him quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean he's really kind of a loser and an idiot in the first like season that we see him.
Hmm.
But here he recurs, like we said, a couple of different episodes, and um, he's pretty funny here.
And he helps Frasier out a couple times too.
Yes, he really. Yeah, we'll get to that pretty soon, I think, or maybe that's in the second half of the season.
Probably.
But yeah, he basically asks Fraser for a job. Fraser gives him the runaround, ends up giving him, pawning him off to Niles because he's mad that Niles is trying to get this rare wine or something, and he won't share it with Fraser. So we realize that uh, he has some sort of connection to this real great guy in the wine industry. It's his buddy's grandfather. So
Hmm.
now they're fighting over him, and he realizes that. I love the way he plays them.
Turn around.
And then they realize it as they're like continuing to sidebar at the cafe. I thought that was a great scene. This is another really funny episode.
I agree. This is a good one.
Yeah. So I'd probably give this one an A minus as well. Up next, we've got Junior Agent. What happens on this one? Doctor Zach.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
this a BB one.
this is a BB and her new protege, played by Kristen Chenoweth. And this would have been before I knew who she was. I mean, this would have been before Pushing Daisies. Before, I mean, I don't really follow the Broadway scene. She was probably doing Wicked at this point on Broadway, but
Oh,
I love Kristen Chenoweth. So every time this episode comes up, it's always a hoot. Big Kenny episode too. We've seen Kenny sort of in and out of this season, but this was a big one because we've got this hot new doctor on the scene, Dr. Zach. And so, BB's barely really in it. She's only in
I
the one.
know.
But what do you think of the BB protege?
Um, I think this one was also one of my favorites. I thought this one was quite brilliant because Frasier, clearly has says, BB is my agent. She's helped me a lot, and he just will not allow this new agent to really try her hand. And he just he has all these assumptions, but that slow build up to her confronting them, and
Yeah,
they're like half naked and just kind of straight. It's like showing how much power and enthusiasm she has to do it. It's just, I thought it was pretty great,
and
honestly.
she doesn't quit. I mean, I thought this is another one. Like I thought Frasier was really being unfair to her.
Yeah, and now you know what? Actually, yeah, I really did like her persistence, and it was a good lesson. But you are right, Dan. Once again, Frasier not willing to give her a chance just based on a general assumption. Humor her a little bit, man,
Right.
a little
You
bit.
know why he was so hard and fast? Maybe
I
because
don't
she
know.
was, in some way related to BB in a business relationship. I don't know. But she was clearly persistent and proved that time and time and time again. So, and he's gone with so many other worse agents over the years.
Hmm.
So yeah, I liked the portrayal, but I thought again he was being kind of a jerk in this one. So I'd probably give it like maybe a B plus type thing. All right, so up next is Bully for Martin. This is where we finally see Martin at work at his night manager job or night watchman job,
Hmm.
and we find that he is in sort of a contentious relationship with his boss. And of course, Frasier and Niles have to insert themselves into trying to save the day, trying to swoop in. Um, I
Oh,
think I know your favorite part of this episode. Was it the bodyguard that
oh
Frasier hires?
yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love the bodyguard. That was great.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
Classic, like Frasier and Niles going way, way above and beyond, and to sort of, get their point across and make sure, okay, like, fine, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. They hire this person, even no need for a bodyguard.
No,
Um,
no, not at all. And I also really like just how, I mean, just a classic example of Niles and Frazier think they know best. They try to fix the situation. They actually make it worse. Like a lot
right.
when Frazier's going to his boss and then, oh yeah, and oh yeah, yeah.
But at the end of it, they actually inadvertently do make it better because because Martin, kind of gets in trouble for meddling, and he was like, "Well, I'm not the one that did it." And then he sees, the kids on the camera, and he's like, "Oh, I bet my stupid kids did." And so then they actually kind of bond over
over that.
kids in the way and stuff.
That's
Um,
true.
so inadvertently, they actually did help. It just wasn't anything they were doing
That they were planning. No.
right in
Yeah,
classic
this was a good one, man.
style. Yeah, so I'd give this one an A minus as well. All right, so here next up we have the two-parter Motherlode parts 1 and 2, and here we go. We talked about the peaks and valleys of the season. Joe, I know how you feel already about
Well, I spoiled it. I think I messaged you a couple times.
the Moon family.
I hate it. I hate it. I
Yeah,
really
this
hate
is
it.
definitely part of the valley part of the season. These two episodes. It's interesting because I love the B story of these episodes, which is the Cam Winston American flag bit.
Yes.
The B story is so funny. This is where Frasier, the character, really, through the years, we see him sort of unhinged at various times, like when the morning show was making fun of him. And the unhinged Frasier is probably my favorite version of Frasier.
When he's losing it.
When he's just losing it. And we've seen this in Cheers as well. Some of the funniest moments with Frasier, like there, I know you haven't seen all the Cheers episodes, but
True.
There's a Cheers episode where he just goes off the rails and starts doing things to be a bad boy because he has this perception of being stuck up. And so he starts running around the bar with scissors, and I'm running with scissors, would a safe person do that? And it's just it's I feel like the impetus for a lot of these sort of crazier moments. And I love the whole American flag thing with Cam Winston. So that part's great. However, the part with the mother. Well, since this is the last episode we're going to talk about this, why don't we hear from you about how much we hate Millicent Moon?
I feel kind of bad. First of all, I do want to add on to that. I think Cam Winston is kind of like a great arch enemy for Frasier because he's basically he's the same person essentially.
Yes.
Very similar. And there's a follow up to that later. We'll talk about next part. But
part two.
Yeah, no, the whole him talking with the condo board and complete backfiring. Amazing stuff. You're right.
Singing the Star Spangled Banner,
and nobody cares. Everybody hates him. He's vilified. It's great. No, yeah, the upping of things was fantastic. But yeah, the main plot, I feel, I honestly didn't think I had a good reason for disliking it that clearly made sense. And I don't, for one thing, I think, and it kind of carries on for a lot of the rest of the season after this point, I think that it's one of those things where Frasier isn't really Frasier a lot of the time because it really loses focus and we play around with this different show which deals with Daphne's family. I think on the surface that's one issue, but
good point.
My other problem though is two issues. Firstly, it was with their brother, who I don't really like that character much, and with Simon. But with the mother, it's like him but worse because number one, I don't find her likable. At all. And perhaps worse, I don't find her funny. I don't find her funny at all.
Yep. He's not funny at all.
I hate it. I'm like, oh, please go away.
Yeah.
And that's just how I feel about, I think, this two-parter, and I just wanted that to resolve. It was kind of a bummer every time those episodes came out. I thought it took a lot away from the main show. And I just don't find her funny, and I don't find her likable, and I don't care. I thought her family and all the talks of her mother were a lot like with Maris. It worked better when it was just these fantastic stories we heard about secondhand, and it's like this way. It's like, oh, she actually is a terrible person. That's kind of worse, and I don't know. It kills a lot of the humor too.
Well, and so the basic plot of this episode is that they being Niles and Daphne are going to move in together, and then we find out that she's coming because her husband, Daphne's father, has left her, and so she needs to now stay there for a while, but Daphne can't even tell her that, she's not even a virgin anymore, let alone going to be moving in with Niles. So it throws that whole thing off. And to me, it was just very reminiscent of all the Mel stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, we
exactly.
can't advance our relationship because of Mel, and now it's we can't advance our
Because
relationship
of
because of
mom.
that mom. So it's like
It's the
it
same
was
thing.
it was a retread of something that already I didn't like 2 seasons
Hmm.
ago or whenever that was. So yeah, I agree, but I agree 100%. She's not a funny character at all.
And I know and I since you really are kind of the sitcom guy, I really want to see if you can expand a little more because I we talked a lot about on Film Fanatics how comedy is one of the most difficult things to write and satisfy everybody because it's very subjective and personal to experience.
Yeah.
But but like I was thinking like just what is there anything about the jokes with that setup that just typically don't work for Frasier? Would it be better in a different show? Is it just out of place?
Here's the thing, and what's great is I've already talked about how I recently watched Everybody Loves Raymond.
Mhm.
Everybody Loves Raymond famously has a smothering mother figure in the Doris Roberts character.
But she's great.
She's so great. So, okay, what's the difference? Well, number one, we know the character because she's a main staple of the show,
Hmm.
and you know the ins and the outs. You know her relationships with everybody, and you know that essentially, yes, she rules the family basically, but out of love. You know,
Yes.
she wants the best for her children, and this and that and the other thing. Whereas Millicent Moon just seems like an evil character.
Yeah.
She doesn't have any care for anybody really but herself. And to top it off, she favors Simon way more than Daphne.
Mm.
And I think we as the audience don't like, I mean, I know you and I specifically, but in general, I think people don't like the Simon character either.
Yeah, that makes
Where
her look
it's
really
like,
bad.
whereas everybody loves Raymond, it's like, okay, she favors Raymond over Robert, but that's the joke. Like Robert's always put upon, even though he's a stand-up guy, whatever.
But Brad Garrett
And
though.
Brad, of course, but Simon is an unlikable character to begin with. So to pick him over Daphne, and Daphne after 9 seasons is a character that we love.
Hmm.
It's just really really hard to get behind that character.
It makes sense. Plus, since we
Yeah,
don't know her and all we see is her liking Simon more and just being, completely
right.
mean to Daphne, despite her bending over backwards to help her, she has like no redeeming qualities.
Yes, yes, completely agreed. So,
Oof,
this
that's
one
bad.
skates by, I think, only because of the Cam Winston gags.
True, I
Uh,
like that. Yeah.
so I'd probably give this one in like the C plus range. Um, Lower for you?
Honestly, well, you reminded me about Cam Winston, and I
I wish Cam
really,
own episode. Like, I wish the American flag bit with Cam Winston was its own episode.
yes, yes. If it
Because
were
it's
its own episode, it would have been like one of the best. Absolutely.
absolutely, yep,
But half of it is this, and yeah, it really subtracts it for me.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Worst.
whatever.
I would say worst of the season for sure.
Probably. I know that
Although the
I
one
don't.
later on that we're going to talk about where we meet Daphne's dad, I don't really like that one either.
Yeah, I was gonna say towards the end of the season. I mean, we deal more with family stuff, and I'm like, it's not really
Right.
that much
You're right.
better.
Let's put a pin in calling this the worst one yet.
Okay,
Of
it's
um,
up there for sure.
up there for sure. So that is part one of Frasier. We will be back with another Frasier Friday next week. We're going to talk about the final 11 episodes of the season and get to know more of Daphne's family and how Joe and I
Oh.
feel about that. But that's going to be it. Comment below, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.